Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where as promised, we have finished our turn and we are ready for our inclination change here. This is going to be a fairly hefty inclination change, but it's only 71 meters per second, so that's really not too bad. We're going to warp around to that. We're about 3 hours away now. Let's warp a little further. Excellent. So we're now about 2 minutes away. And let's get ready for this burn. We're going to warp forward a little bit here. We're about 1 minute away. 10 seconds. And 3, 2, 1, mark. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to say that that is probably good enough. That definitely felt a little bit over-gimbaled there. We'll keep an eye on that situation, but how's that doing on the inclination? Well, we don't actually have Lathe targeted since I restarted the game, so we're going to need to hop right on in here and set Lathe as our target. That put us at 0.0. Fantastic. So now we're going to need to look for an opportunity to home and transfer over to Lathe, ideally without hitting any of the other moons on the way. So we'll see how that ends up going. Can I open this? Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so inward we come here, and let's see what this... From this angle, it won't let me interact with the maneuver node. Weird. But I can from this angle. Okay. Whatever. That was an encounter there, but we don't actually want that. This is not showing us a Lathe encounter. Our timing is off. Okay. That's a Lathe encounter there. Cool. So if we head into Lathe here, we can see this is actually... This is an impact trajectory. I don't want an impact trajectory. So we're just going to back off a little bit on this. And I want this to be fairly minimal on the orbit. So it would be about here or so. Well, we can definitely dial that in a little bit. I think we're going to have to raise this periapsis some because I want to drop off our satellite in a higher orbit. That said, the satellite could drive itself to a higher orbit. It does have quite a lot of xenon propulsion. So this is probably fine. Let's align for that burn. And this is the transfer we're looking at. That's quite an interesting gravity assist that we've got going on there. That would actually push us out of the Julian system. Yeah, that's definitely gravity assisting to propel us out of the Julian system, but whatever. That's not our actual goal here. So that seems relatively fine. Now, before we detach this, we should probably extend this antenna, but my question is, would we break that antenna? That's a definite maybe. I'm going to retract it again because I feel like we might break it. So for the moment, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this guy. Then while we're still close, we're going to extend this antenna at that point, is the idea. So that seems fine. We are turning at a much better rate than we previously were. This is going to be a 484 meter per second burn, or about 36 seconds overall. Not too bad. Not too bad. So we're going to be coming in a lot closer to Joule. No doubt about that. Excellent. Then the plan is going to be a braking burn at Lathe. So once we are in here, of course, we're going to do a braking burn here to put ourselves in a minimal orbit. And then we're going to do a further braking burn here after getting rid of the communication satellite, which is going to go back up to the high orbit. And then we'll do a braking burn, or rather an apoapsis raise burn there to circularize it at a relatively high orbit around Lathe, is the idea. Fingers crossed, hopefully that works. Well, it will work. But fingers crossed that hopefully we're able to pull that off in a reasonable manner, which I think we can. It's a fairly complicated set of maneuvers there in terms of, like, getting everything timed correctly and such, but I don't foresee any major problems with that. So I think it all looks good. We are lined up for this burn, so let's just warp right on in. Excellent. We'll be commencing this burn in about 22 minutes. Let's warp forward a little further than that. Now about 40 seconds, if that's all looking good. 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Cool. So we're just looking to bring this into basically this point. It'll do. And the inclination is pretty decent, actually. So that all looks good. We've got about 20 seconds of burn time left here. We're just looking to have this periapsis be basically identical to where it is. I can definitely see that we're a little over gimbaled here. We're rocking back and forth as we attempt to hold this attitude. That's noted. Okay, so here we come. I'm just cutting down our throttle a little bit here. Is it just me, or is this a wildly different inclination than we were expecting? Yeah, we're at a 2.1 degree inclination now. That is not expected. Okay, well, we're just going to have to do this manually here and get ourselves over to a radial, and I'm not sure which radial. Turning is going to be kind of slow. I guess we could set up a maneuver plan up over here and work on it this way. Yeah, this radial is fine. That is getting us an encounter at 1 meter per second. Okay. Well, this inclination is definitely not the inclination we expected to be at. That's for sure. But we can work on correcting it to be at a reasonable inclination and a reasonable altitude, kind of like this. Now, that's 7 meters per second. So that's understood, and we're going to want to thrust limit this guy way down to like 1% thrust. I have to assume that the reason we had that issue was due to the over-gimbaling, and also the fact that 1 meter per second, or rather 7 meters per second, gives us this encounter compared to where we are. So, yeah, there's a lot of changes going on here with very small amounts of DV. So I think it had to do with the fact that we were over-gimbaled and that we were, well, just not in the best of attitudes there. We were rocking around, jostling around. I think that's probably what caused this. To that end, we could restrict the gimbal on this engine, and that is definitely an interesting thing to do. What if we were to restrict the gimbal down to 10%? We can see if that solves the problem, but we don't expect to have too many more sensitive burns, so it should be reasonably fine, either way. So we're almost in position for this burn, and this is going to be in like 2 days. I think that's fine. Yeah, that should be absolutely fine. Let's just get into position for this, and hopefully things will be a little bit less wacky after we finish up this burn. Because the last one definitely went some directions we weren't expecting it to. But that's okay. It's not like we're short on Delta V or anything. So let's get this all set up here, and we're going to get ourselves... This is primarily going to be an inclination change burn. Primarily. But it's going to be a little bit in terms of a... This is what? Anti-radial? No, this is radial. Yeah, radial out. I always forget that they call it radial out and radial in versus radial and anti-radial. But whatever. Terminology is complicated. Rocket science isn't. So, let's get set up here, and we are going to warp forward here in just a moment. We're just about aligned. All is looking good. Let's warp forward a bit. Okay, so we're going to start this burn in about 2 minutes. So let's warp forward for that. About 1 minute, 20 seconds, 10, and 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. This is set up for us to not be thrust limited. That is understood. It shouldn't be a major impact here that we are thrust limited. Although this is definitely going down fairly slowly. So that is noted. For right now, we're just going to continue to bring this down a little gently, but it's a little too gently, isn't it? Let's bump this up to 2% thrust. There we go. Okay, now we need to get back over to Lathe. There we go. So we're at 2% thrust here, and this is looking good. Little further. That'll do. Okay, so our inclination is what? It does not say. Helpful. Okay, so that is fine. I guess we don't need to know exactly what our inclination is. And we're coming down this direction, which Lathe is going this way, which is fine. We're going to want to warp over to this encounter. So right about here in 49... Whoa. Okay, that was a lot. 49 days, we're going to warp to about here. Okay, now we're going to warp a little further to approximately here. Because we want to be in the sphere of influence of Lathe here. Excellent. So our next mission is to get ourselves into a minimal orbit of Lathe. So I'm going to unthrust limit this because we're going to have to do a braking burn. I'll leave the gimbal limit and see how that feels, because we definitely felt over gimbaled. But now we need to come over here. We need to do a braking burn right at this periapsis, and I want to minimally braking burn. So essentially, we want to just bring this guy right on around and park it about here. But this is only a partial burn here. This is not our entire burn. So let's line up for that burn. We're going to have to turn for that, of course, and turning is kind of slow. But that is absolutely understood. What are we at in mission elapsed time? 10 years? Okay, yeah. This is a pretty long-term mission, no doubt about that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted it to be unmanned. But another reason is we don't have to recover any of this. So this is all absolutely fine. We're going to do a braking burn in 35 minutes, and it's going to be 35 seconds long. That's quite a coincidence, but that's okay. We're just getting oriented nicely here. Here's Jewel, looking all, you know, green and stuff. And then here's Lathe down here, looking all, you know, green and stuff. So that's wonderful. We're almost in position over here, but it is going to take a little while yet to get this turn done. Understandable. And the turning is going to go half as quickly once we get rid of this satellite. So turning is going to be a significant issue. Probably should have included a large reaction wheel up over here in retrospect, like underneath the fairing, but this is fine. We can make this work. All we need to do is be in position here for this burn, and then we need to do a number of burns. There's a number of steps left to this mission, no doubt about that. So first step is the deployment of our communication satellite. Second step is bringing this guy down a little bit further after the ComSat has deployed. So that'll be fine. We're almost in position for this burn now, and we are, of course, going to be warping down closer to Lathe. Let's go ahead and do that now. Perfect. So now that we are here, we've got about another 30 seconds, and we can turn for that time. That'll be absolutely fine. And of course, where's Jewel at right now? Is Jewel currently hidden behind Lathe? Quite possibly, but we can't zoom out enough to find out. We could check on the map. Yeah, Jewel is currently occluded by Lathe. Sounds good. So at this point, we've got about 15 seconds left on this burn, or rather until this burn, and that seems fine. This is the orbit that we're looking to get into. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. Checking in on our gimbaling here. Yeah, you can see here, we're not wildly oscillating around like we were before. we're more stable. I'm not going to call it super stable, but it's more stable for sure. So that seems better anyway. And let's drop this orbit on down. Again, we're going for a very, very minimal orbit here. Okay. So let's just get this into position here. There we go. That'll do. Now what we want to do is we want to jettison this satellite. So specifically, what I'm looking to do is to decouple this guy with relatively minimal force. So we'll decouple that. Wow, that really started spinning out here. Okay, I guess that's fine. This is an okay direction to go. We'll extend out our solar panels. And I want to make sure that you're still in orbit. Yes. Fantastic. So this is nice and out of the way. We want to go back to here now, and I want to be at retrograde. And that's going to be a little bit interesting to get to at this point. No doubt about that. But we also are going to want to extend this antenna for the time being, just to make sure that we're going to have a nice connection here. So that looks okay. I'm going to start up a bit of a burn here, because what I want to do is make our way to retrograde. I'm actually going to warp to freeze our physics so we can start turning towards retrograde. There we go. Because for whatever reason, this was in a weird direction, but that's fine. So I don't really care about the inclination change. What I really want to do here is I want to get this apoapsis brought down. But we're in a weird orientation for that right now. Like I said, we knew that we were going to be halving our turning speed when we came out here. So that was definitely understood. Now we could delay this until after this burn. And at this point, that's probably the best. Actually, we're a ways away from the periapsis currently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change up the order that we were planning on doing this. I'm going to activate this engine. And of course, we've got 23,000 dV in this. This thing is wildly overbuilt for this. But we're going to come up to the apoapsis up here, and we're going to look to push this up. That is a very lengthy burn indeed. Okay. We're going to need to change the timing on this. And that's going to have to go, I guess, something kind of like this. This isn't really ideal. That's a very long burn. This is going to be in 4 hours. Okay. We can make this work. But it's going to be a very long burn. Okay, let's orient for that. It's understood, and this is going to be 317 meters per second. This engine does not have a lot of thrust, right? So we'll see how that ends up going. Let's warp on over to this. And this orbit is not going to be absolutely perfect. We're going to want to maybe do a bit of a change to it. The timing is just, the thrust to weight of this is very, very low, right? So we're going to be starting this in 35 seconds. I'm going to actually commence the burn now. And this is just very, very minute amounts of thrust here. Very minute indeed. Electric charge is a bit of an issue. Where is the sun right now? This is pretty ideal as far as our electric charge is going to go. So we're going to be net negative on electric charge here. That is, of course, going to cause some significant issues. But I guess we'll warp forward as best we can. And we'll just raise this up. It looks like this is a little broken, and we're out of electric charge now. I'm wondering, are we still burning partially here? I'm not convinced that we are. We are. We're just constrained by the energy flow here. Okay. So that's reasonably fine, I guess. We could do this on multiple passes if we really needed to. And to be honest, we probably should. So at this point, I'm going to cut the throttle, and we're going to get rid of this. And we want to raise this up, but that's going to be tedious for sure. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap back over to this guy. Excellent. And this is much higher thrust to weight here for sure. What we want to do now is we want to drop our periapsis here. And we know that the altitude of the atmosphere here is about 50 kilometers. So I'm going to drop this to be about 60. Somewhere around here or so. That's 80. 70 and sure. 59 is absolutely fine. So we're just going to align for that. We're drifting the wrong direction right now, so I'm killing the velocity there, and we're just going to start turning. Okay, so I definitely expected two Colossuses to be able to power that engine. Two Gigantors at this distance, I think, would have powered it in KSP1. I'm not 100% on that. This distance from the sun, we start seeing some pretty big fall off in electrical power generation, so that is definitely a thing. But yeah, that's something we can definitely raise up, or we can just call this good and be like, you know, it's in a decent orbit, and it kind of is. It's not an ideal orbit, but it'll do, I think. So I'm wondering right now, we're connected to the ComNet, right? But are we connected directly, or are we bouncing through this relay? I'm not certain on that. It's an interesting question, for sure. But for now, what we need to do is we need to drop this on down. Cool. So we're now going to commence this burn here in 35 seconds. We can warp forward a little further. 30. Okay, now we should pull out a warp because we do have more turning to do here. Although gimbaling will get a lot of that. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Excellent. So let's just get rid of a bunch of this speed that we've got. And this satellite here, I also expected its thrust to weight to be a little higher. It doesn't have all that much mass. So I think there's been some balancing changes to Xenon engines. Note how we are going the wrong direction here, apparently, significantly. We lost attitude. That's interesting. So I guess we need to crank the gimbal back up. I mean, we do have... we did lose half of our mass here, so I guess that's not the biggest of shocking things, so it's fine, but things are definitely going a little awkward at this moment. Okay, let's bring this around. I don't care about our inclination here. The inclination is completely fine. I just want to bring this around to here, freezing the physics, and now we're going to commence the burn more. The gimbal should be able to handle this. Yeah. It's going to be, you know, oscillating a lot, but that's fine. We don't need to do too much more here. So we're just dropping this periapsis down to, like, I don't know, 55 kilometers. We're probably going to get rid of this maneuver node. We don't really need it. And let's just bring this periapsis right on down. I want to be in retrograde here. Okay. 51. That'll do. So next up, we're going to bring this down a little further, circularizing this. I don't want to dip into the atmosphere here just yet, but I want to be incredibly, incredibly close. Yeah, that'll do. So we'll align to that, although, you know, it's going to be a little awkward for us. No doubt about that. We're off balance at this point, and that's fine. We're just going to need to deliver ourselves into this orbit and then put ourselves into a reasonable velocity, and it'll be fine. So, we're going to want to... Yeah, it would be fine to just mash spacebar once we're ready to go on that. So that seems fine. The next question is, when is this guy going to be ready to raise this apoapsis again? Well, the answer is after this burn. I'm quite certain on that. So we're working on turning our way over, but it's going to be slow. And it is about time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to bring this in. Remember, all we have to do is activate this engine over Lathe. So we just need to get ourselves into a reasonable enough position to do that. And that is indeed exactly what we're going to do. It is time to put that cut in, so I'm going to do that. And next episode, we'll just get this completed. We may not even raise this apoapsis here. I don't think it's strictly speaking necessary. So we'll see how that ends up going. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy McGar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Tommy Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.